Perfect. So my name's Ingrid, and I own Toronto Dog Moms, which is a community of dog moms in the city. And we hope to kind of be a resource of information, whether it be, what park can I take my dog to, what pet-friendly cafes are there in the city once, COVID is over. And then we also host our own events at local breweries, and we support local brands as much as possible as well. So that's just a little bit about me.
Thank you, Ingrid. So I'm gonna just get then a presentation bigger.
Awesome.
I don't mind putting in presentation mode. And start when you.
Perfect. I'm just put it up and running. Perfect. Okay, so we're going to talk today about pet first aid. I gave you a little quick intro about Toronto Dog Moms and what we do. And I'm a certified Walks and Wags pet first aid instructor, and I've been teaching pet first aid and CPR for almost 5 years now. Walks and Wags is based in Vancouver and run by a wonderful lady named Lisa, who continuously keeps the course up to date and is always looking at different ways of approaching this course and teaching it in innovative ways. The course has been recognized worldwide and teaches the skills to work with both cats and dogs, which is really great. It is one of the courses that actually has live dogs in it, so it's really great to be able to take one of the Walks and Wags pet first aid courses because you can actually bandage a live dog. Bandaging a live dog is a lot different from bandaging a mannequin because they move around and can't tell you where it hurts. So it's always good to practice on live animals. And we both volunteer for Soy Dog Rescue, which rescues animals from Thailand. So she actually goes out there several times a year to help out. And I do the home checks here in Toronto whenever somebody wants to adopt an animal from Thailand. I go into their home and kind of speak to the families and all of that. So we have that in common, which is nice given that we're in two different cities. So why is pet first aid important? So pet first aid isn't only important for pet professionals, like your groomer or your dog walker, but as a pet parent too, like Juliana was mentioning, because given there's no emergency line, there's no ambulance, there's nowhere you can kind of run into in the event of an emergency. So it's really important to be prepared to deal with any issues that can come up with your pets. And pet first aid equips you with the knowledge of identifying whether an animal is ill or injured, and it provides you with steps to keep them comfortable until you can access veterinary care. So it's really important to kind of have those tools available to you just so that you're not caught in a situation that you don't know how to handle, because there's really no 911 that you can call for that. And then prevention as well as recognizing illness is a huge vital part that we teach in the course. I'll talk a little bit more about prevention. So with prevention, we're looking at things that you might not even think are a preventative thing that you're doing, but long-term it is something prevention that you're doing. So regular dental care. Dental disease is a huge thing with animals. Both cats and dogs can get a lot of dental issues. They can then develop into their bloodstream and then develop issues with their heart. So it's really important to be on top of your pet's dental care. Nail clipping is a huge thing too, because if their nails are too long, they can cause injuries. If there's any women in this seminar today, you know how badly it hurts when you cut a certain part of your nail, or if you cut underneath the nail bed, how painful that is. So it's a lot worse for your animals because they're walking on their paws every single day. So making sure that their nails are clipped and clean are really important. A lot of people got puppies now. Puppy proofing your home is another huge thing. So just like how you would baby proof when you're bringing a baby home from the hospital, you want to puppy proof your home. So you want to put up baby gates, making sure that you're putting any kind of cleaning products away from reach. And just making sure that they can't get into anything, even the garbage, little things like that, that you don't think of, putting something heavy on top of a garbage lid so that the pets can't get inside will prevent them from getting, an upset stomach or things like that where they've gotten into your garbage. So that's a very small thing to do, but it makes a huge difference. You want to make sure that the plants in your home are non-toxic, which I'll show you a little clip later of all the types of plants that are toxic, that you wouldn't even think are are harmful to your pets, but if they ingest it, it can be very dangerous. You also want to ensure you're using proper transportation equipment. So a crate or a seatbelt while they're in the car is a huge thing that could save your animal's life. If you were involved in a car accident or anything like that, having them in a crate actually secures them and keeps them in place. And then nutrition, which is something that I believe there was a webinar recently, or sorry, it's happening next week. Nutrition is a huge thing to kind of prolong your pet's life and will prevent long-term health issues as well. Other little things as well that we
Ingrid, sorry, the interruption. We are not seeing the slide that you are speaking to. We are still seeing the first slide, and it's not in presentation mode. So can you try to select another?
Weird.
Yeah, that's better. There, now we're looking at prevention.
Okay, can you see now?
Now it's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. So let me just make sure it doesn't do that again. Are you able to see it now still?
Yes, I can see it, but not in presentation mode. It's going on. We can see the notes, like a smaller version.
Okay. And now can you see it?
Not yet.
That is so weird.
Let me see what options you have. Because you just did it. Can you try another option there in your your menu? I can see because it's so small. There you go.
There?
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so but the thing is then I can't see my notes, which is weird.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's doing that. Okay.
What you could do is, oh yeah, it's true. It wouldn't let you see your notes. So if you want, maybe you can, make it a little bit bigger there. That's perfect.
Is that okay?
That's better, yes.
There we go. So just to continue on from about the prevention, you definitely want to talk to your vet about any preventative medication and what's best suited to them. So something as routine as getting your flea and tick medication annually. There's a whole bunch of new ones on the market. We actually just started giving my dog Bravecto this year, but a lot of these kill fleas, heartworms, ear mites, mange, ticks. So you want to make sure you're talking to your vet and what you're exposing them to, so that you know what's best to put what preventative medicine is best to put them on. And next up, I have my little slide with all of the plants. So I hope you guys can see this. I'm going to zoom in a bit because there are quite a few plants that a lot of us probably have had in our home at some point or another. This one right here, the Poinsettia, is a really, really popular now for Christmas. And, everyone seems to gift them to everybody, but they're really hazardous to your pets. So you want to make sure that you're aware of what is coming into your home, what you have, and what your pets can get into, especially cats. They seem to be able to get up high places. So even if you have your plants on a countertop and things like that, they might still be able to access them. So something as simple as not having these in your home, you don't have to worry about coming home to a pet that might have a toxic reaction to any of these plants. Next up.
Can you show us a little bit bigger the name of the plants that I wasn't able to read them?
Yeah, so they're alphabetically. Here we only have 23, but if you actually go on, there's the ASPCA website that will actually give you all the plants that are toxic. I'm just going to pull up the website now so I can provide it to you guys, but it's actually a very extensive list.
I'm surprised that there are so many.
Yeah, and it's actually very scary when you start to put them in because you might not even think that something is toxic. You might just think, oh, we're not exposed, or we don't have that plant here, so we're fine. But even traveling with your pets, you might not think to check. So I always recommend to people to check when they're traveling, especially what plants are they going to be exposed to and what is hazardous so that they can avoid it. I'm going to put the link in the chat right now.
Great, thank you.
That's a really great resource for kind of going through, and it tells you toxic, non-toxic plants. There's over 1,000 plants in there. Some are just to cats, some are just to horses, and some are just to dogs, and then some are to everybody. So you want to make sure, I always recommend to people, especially if you're traveling, to check these plants and see if, you know, you're hiking by one of these plants. You want to make sure you're not allowing your pets to kind of go and sniff it and ingest it or anything like that. Next up, we talk about head to toe check a lot in our class as well. And with this, I always think it's important for people to do a complete head to toe check for your pets. And not only when you're in an emergency situation, but on a regular monthly or semi-monthly basis, just depending on your pet's age and what they're exposed to, just because you don't want to find something later that could have been preventable or you could have brought to your vet's attention. So you want to check them literally from head, tip of their nose to the tip of their tail. And it's important to check for any lumps or bumps that you haven't noticed before. You want to check ears, eyes, nose for any kind of unusual discharge. You want to look into paw pads if there's anything stuck in there that shouldn't be in there. This is one of my little diagrams that I use to kind of go through what you're looking for. Their tail, if there's hair missing, and every pet's different. So you want to make sure that you're looking at what is normal and abnormal for your pet, right? Because it might not be something that is alarming to you because they've had that for years, but for somebody else that might be caring for your pet as well, you want to provide them with a list of things that you've already noticed on them. Quick example, I used to do dog walking, and one of the dog walkers was just drying a dog. So they went out for a regular walk, came back inside the door, and she took off his harness and she was just, drying off his body. And in doing that, she found a lump. We then told the client, we found a lump on your dog. We think it should be checked out. And it turned out it was cancerous. And the client had no idea. They hadn't done a head to toe check on him. They haven't really had to. So if it wasn't something that the dog walker had caught, they wouldn't have really noticed where they could have, been over the time of where they could save his life. So it's really important. I tell people all the time to do this. Now that my dog's turned 10, we do it probably every month, I would say. We sit him down and kind of just feel around, especially because he's had mast cell tumors removed. So it's something that we're always on top of with him. So you want to make sure what's normal and abnormal for your pet. And same thing goes for their heart rate, for their temperature, like what is normal for them and what isn't normal, right? So it's something that you always want to make sure you're checking out. And then important phone numbers. So these are really important numbers to have on hand in the event of an emergency. You want to have them readily available to you. So I'll leave them up for a little bit of time. I'll actually enlarge it so everyone can write them down. So these numbers are your local poison center. The ASPCA poison helpline is also really great. I just provided the link where you can see all the hazardous plants. So this number, when you call, there is a fee that you have to pay, but it is something that I recommend people have available to them, especially if you're able to tell them what was ingested, how much of it. They're able to really help you and guide you through what you need to do for your pets. And then there's the pet poison helpline as well. And then your local animal control service is always great to have. And I recommend having an emergency vet number as well. So your local emergency vet that would be open for 24 hours, just in case you run into a pet emergency at 3 o'clock in the morning. You want to be able to have that phone number readily available on your phone and save these numbers as contacts in your phone. It doesn't hurt to have them available for yourself or for someone else. Okay, I'm going to assume everyone got these phone numbers down. If not, I can put them back up. And then next up, we have our pet first aid kit. So everyone who has a home with a pet should definitely be using a basic first aid kit. You want to make sure that you keep your kit in your home. And if you're traveling, you take it with you in your car. And then you want to tailor it to your pet's needs and lifestyle. So we talked about people that take this course. It's usually pet professionals or dog walkers or groomers, things like that. they'll tailor it where they have a little bit more variety of things inside. Whereas a pet owner will literally specifically get things that they've used on their pet, and then you just restock them. So I'm going to actually show you guys really quickly my pet first aid kit that I've done for my dog, and then I had it for my dog walking previously. So it's a huge box, as you can see. It's very easy to carry around. I have several different muzzles. So when you're dealing with pet first aid, an animal that has been injured will always have a fight or flight type of response. So you want to make sure you're protecting yourself. So an animal that's been hit by a car, you're going to help them. You definitely want to be able to muzzle them. I have this muzzle because my dog is a squishy face dog, so they're really hard to find muzzles that fit over their mouth and nose. So that's the one I have for my dog. I have a ton of different other sized muzzles in here for different sized animals, cats, dogs of different sizes. So that's your first step of dealing with any kind of emergency situation. I have gloves so that I can protect myself if I'm dealing with anything. I have syringes. So a lot of the times, being a pet parent or a pet professional, you have to administer medication. So there's liquid medications, there's eye, oral, things like that. So you want to have different ways of administering medication. I know we talked about injuries of the nails and how painful they can be. So this is called septic powder. And what this does is it stops bleeding. So if you cut a nail to the quick, it will actually stop the bleeding if you put this powder on it. I have tick twisters because ticks were pretty, rampant this year in the city and outside in cottage country. I have blunt end scissors, which is really helpful to cut any kind of bandages that you might use. What else do I have? I have lots of stuff. I have cold compress. I have bandaging. I have an extra leash in here. I used to carry this pet first aid kit in my car, and the amount of dogs, stray dogs that I saw walking around that I'd have to go help. So even though it's just a leash, I can still run it through and loop on if I need to grab a dog really quickly that might be lost. I have emergency ID tags in case I need to ID a dog or put information on them. There's rope in here. I have a toothbrush because, like we talked about, dental hygiene being really important. There is an emergency blanket. So if you're dealing with any kind of cold injuries, would be really good to have those in there.
What is the rope for?
The rope, literally for anything that you can use. So we teach a technique that if you absolutely don't have a muzzle, you can use a rope to kind of muzzle the animal. If you don't have a leash like I do, you can tie it around their neck so that you have control and can take them if you need to. So it has a lot of uses, even to transport if you have to tie them onto a board to transport them out if they're severely injured and can't walk. So there's lots of uses for the rope. It just really depends the situation that you're in. I have a feminine pad. I recommend everyone to put one of these in their pet first aid kit because it absorbs blood. It absorbs blood and it's sticky on one side. So when you're in a bind, if you're at the dog park type of situation and you need to kind of bandage something up really quickly, pulling that out and putting it around the wound will definitely help to stop bleeding. So I definitely recommend putting one of those in there. I have some saline solution. I have tweezers if you have to take out any kind of like debris or little things that might get stuck in a wound. The tweezers are really great as well. And I always recommend to have a container if you're going to be pulling a tick off of anyone. I actually have ticks in here that I show during class. So you want to be able to get any ticks that you remove tested for Lyme's disease at your vet. So having that in there is really great. I have a list of other things on my PowerPoint as well.
In the meantime, there is a question. It says, what are the top 5 first aid items you will suggest putting in, say, a fanny pack for mobility and easy of access, like a first kit aid on the go, so the minimum necessary?
So I would definitely suggest putting in some gauze pads. So this kind of a gauze pads like this, and this type of bandage, so you can bandage up any kind of wounds really quickly. And then it just really depends on what you're exposing yourself to and where you're going. But definitely bandaging, gloves, and even your foil blanket, it's small enough that could fit anywhere if you're going hiking and things like that. It just really depends on where you're going.
Thank you. And there is a question regarding the previous slide when you check for your dog's skin in case there is a lump. Yeah. What are you looking for, like the size of the lump, or what will be a sign?
So with the lumps, it literally, there's nothing particular to say like this lump is bad. The one I found on my dog previously, it felt like it was under the skin. It almost felt like a coin underneath his skin. It was round and flat, and you couldn't see it, but you could feel it. And then the second time he had a lump, it actually looked like a skin tag. And we took him to the vet, and he said that he didn't think anything was wrong, and he biopsied it and then came back and said there was something wrong. So there's really no specific color that you can say or size, but I would say anything that you find, get it checked by your vet. If they say there's nothing wrong, then just continue to monitor it, that it's not growing. Did you want me to answer the other question above?
Forgive me, I was on mute. Yes, oh, no. For sure.
So the other question was, are there any unusual signs that a dog or cat is choking that differ from humans? What is proper protocol if your pet is choking? So there are different signs. A lot of the times you can see the tongue turning blue, you can see the eyes bulging, and sometimes it'll even sound like they're coughing or trying to cork something up. It just depends on what's causing the choking that would change the signs of it. But signs usually include they're pawing at their mouth, bulging eyes, the tongue starts to change color, so it'll turn like a purplish blue. I think those are all the questions besides yours.
Yes, thank you. We will get back to the other ones later.
Yeah, no problem. So with your pet first aid kit, here are some useful items that you can include. So there's absorbent gauze pads, adhesive tape, antiseptic wipes. So for the person that asks something quick in a fanny pack, definitely alcohol swabs or wipes that you can kind of just rip open and use would be really great. The blanket, like I said, the foil emergency blanket, cotton balls, gauze, ice pack, disposable gloves. Scissors are really great. Petroleum jelly is just to lubricate the thermometer, but normally we don't take rectal temperatures as a pet first aid responder. Normally the vet will do that, but it's good to have it if you're going to be somewhere that you don't have access to a vet and you can call them and get talked through on how to do it. Sterile non-stick gauze pads for bandages, sterile saline solution is great, tweezers, and then a pillowcase. So if you have a cat, a pillowcase is really great to transport them because you can kind of grab them very quickly and get moving without them noticing what's going on. There's a whole list of ways to transport cats because they can be a little bit more difficult. But I definitely recommend going on YouTube and you can check out cat toweling videos. And that usually will show you how to handle a cat in an emergency situation. So I'm going to move on to a few other things. So there's Benadryl. I have Benadryl normally in my pet first aid kit. I don't have it in there right now because I actually have it in my home for my dog. So we have Benadryl all the time in case he has an allergic reaction. You definitely want to make sure that you're getting information from your vet on how much to administer to them. Another one is Polysporin that I use a lot. I literally have a Costco membership to buy Polysporin at this point because he goes through so much of it just from little scrapes and things like that. So any kind of antibiotic ointment is really great to have in your pet first aid kit. Ear cleaning solution, plastic eyedroppers or syringes like I showed, splints or tongue depressors. So it's just these little popsicle sticks that you can use. These are used mainly when you're having a bone or a joint injury and you need to kind of support that bone from moving around until you get to the vet. So these are always great to have in your first aid kit as well. this powder that we talked about that actually stops the bleeding, temporary ID tags, just in case you're in a situation where, your dog's collars come off and you have to just kind of make a temporary makeshift one. Towels are always great to have, especially if you can put them in your car, and then pliers just to kind of pull in anything that you need to. So I am going to move on to just a few classes that we have coming up. So I've actually just confirmed a class for April 2021. We'll be teaching it in the East York area. And if you're not local, you can always go on the Walks and Wags Pet First Aid website and check for class listings in your area. So they teach all over Canada, which is really great. So if you ever want to take a class, right now due to COVID, classes are a little bit more less and less, I would say, for the most part, but they are happening, and they are following protocol where everyone's socially distanced. So you can definitely take a class in person and kind of get certified, whether you're a pet parent or a pet professional, and have those skills under your belt where you can kind of have ease and not worry about what do I do in that situation.
Can you paste the links in the chat as well, please?
Yes.
That's great. Thank you. Great, thank you. So we can go through my questions, and for those of you that still have questions, feel free to throw them there. So one of the questions I had is CPR for humans the same than for dogs?
So there are similarities, but I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I think that the compressions are a little different. I know that human CPR changes every so often too on how many compressions and how many breaths and all of that. So essentially the techniques are similar, but the number of breaths and compressions might differ.
Mm-hmm. And then the other one I had is, I have the 3 cases that people say are common when you go on a walk with your dog or you're in a big dog park. So what do you do first, just before going to the vet, to your point, before like assisting before you get there? One of the things is torn or broken nails. What would you do in that case?
Yeah, so if you have that powder, I would definitely suggest to try to stop the bleeding as much as possible. And then you want to wrap it. So you would take your gauze and bandage it up just to kind of hold them over until you get to the vet.
What to do in case of a sprain to the paw?
With the popsicle stick that I had, I would splint it. So I would put the splints so that it's supporting the bone, so it's not going to cause further injury. There's different types of sprains and strains that you can get, but for the most part, you just want to make sure that they're comfortable and that you're not moving the bone more than it should be. So you would splint it and then transport them to the vet.
Great. And lately, and I hope I don't have to see this ever, but if there is a dog fight and there is some injury there.
What kind of injury? Like a puncture?
Well, I imagine the most common will be the puncture, yes.
Yes, so you definitely want to make sure that you have your first aid kit handy, and then you would kind of compress it so that you're stopping the bleeding, and then bandage it until you get to the vet. But definitely take your dog to the vet, because something very minimal that you think it might not be such a big injury could turn into a bigger injury. It could get infected. It could get, and you don't know the other dog's vet information most of the time. So I would definitely suggest getting that information if the owner is still around, making sure that the other dog has their vaccines and all of that.
Great, thank you, Ingrid. So I think we didn't receive any other questions, but this has been really good. I really appreciate you coming and letting us know the first things we should do, and we definitely will follow up with the future classes.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for having me.